I absolutely loved this film. Well done, Julius Avery. It is a monster of a film. There's planes, there's guns, there's explosions, there's flamethrowers, there's monsters, there's chemistry, there's science, there's people coming back to life, there's monsters, there's science, it's awesome. The storyline isn't completely original because obviously we have seen experiments and Nazi experiments, and unfortunately there is an element of truth behind that. So it's not the first time we've seen this. What I love about this film is it takes you on a journey with the soldiers as they're just trying to complete their mission. And they know to a certain degree that it's like an impossible mission with only 4 of them, but they decide to do it anyway. So naturally you're rooting for them, but then the story takes a serious turn and you don't expect it. And what I would have loved is to have watched this film without knowing anything about it. Unfortunately, I've been anticipating this film for quite a long time and I knew exactly what was going to happen in it. But really, what would have been good is a bit like the Cabin in the Woods idea. You think it's one type of film, you know it's a horror, but you don't know how it's going to be horrible as such. And you think it's a war film. It would have been great just to think it was a war film. And then when it turns into such a grisly tale of these experiments and evil, that would have been something to really experience. So after Private Boyce gets out of the science lab, there's a scene where one of their guys gets shot by the prisoner they've got, and the person they're interrogating. He gets free and he shoots one of the soldiers. And Boyce managed to take one of these syringes that sort of reanimated the dead bodies. And just as they're all sort of about to cry their eyes out because one of their good soldiers are now soldiered down, and they're all sort of contemplating their fate, he stabs him with the syringe and brings him back to life, which is great. Hey, wonderful. But it soon gets horrible. Within a couple of seconds, his body starts to morph into some sort of other monster being. His neck snaps. I mean, this scene is really quite hard to watch because the sounds are amazing. The sound effects of his neck snapping and the bones protruding then from his neck and his all these sort of bumps and growths that he starts to have really make it quite an uncomfortable thing to watch. When Boyce is looking through the science lab, he follows a voice of a girl, and when he pulls back the curtain, there's just a head on a spine. There's no flesh from the neck down, just a spine, and it's wired up, so obviously they're keeping control of it somehow. But it's talking, which is obviously a bit far stretched, because how can it talk when it's got no lungs? How's it getting the air through the vocal cords? Is it obviously? I mean, the whole thing is kind of unrealistic, but that one is a little bit. Yeah, maybe you should just kept the lungs on there. If they just sort of did the rest and kept the lungs on there, then it would have explained things a bit better. There's a lot of suspense in the film, and it's done really well. Starting pretty much from when they first get to the girl's house. Her aunt apparently is very unwell, but it becomes obvious she's been experimented on. And there's a few jump scenes, which I'm not a fan of, but they're very well done. It's not like a jump scene that you get in some really crass horror films where they just sort of make a loud noise and you're not experiencing what the person's experiencing. It's just a jump for the audience, which is totally... It's not a panto, that's a really bad technique in movies. But when you're experiencing a fright for that character, then the jump scene's totally relevant, because if it makes him scared, you should be scared, and that's how it should be, relaying the fright, not just making something smash and then go oh like that, or just something like a bird flying past and going, like that, and it's totally irrelevant. The jump scenes in this were done quite well, and there wasn't loads. There was only a couple of them, but it was just to sort of keep your interest, I think, if it tailed off. I'm going to have a couple of spoilers now, so really I suggest that you stop watch where you're watching, which isn't going to do much for my YouTube views, but stop what you're watching and watch the film, and then come back and have a look at the rest of this review. So obviously their mission is now to get into the science lab, blow it up from down there, subsequently taking out the whole of the building, because they know there's just evil down there, and Corporal Ford says, yeah, no one should discover this. Even if we do take over it, then the Americans shouldn't have this, because it is just pure evil. And what they'll do with it, if they try and weaponize it, it's gonna be horrible. So they decide to blow up everything from down in the science lab. And there's a scene which is just brilliant. And I did guess it. I knew it was coming, but I wanted it to happen, and guessing it just made me sort of more excited in case it did. And basically, where one of the head Nazis has injected himself to try and heal himself and to make himself more powerful, when he starts trying to stop them from doing the explosives and he's throwing them around and stuff, Corporal Ford decides to take a serum or an injection of the whatever it is as well, and then they have this sort of like super badass monster fight off, a bit like Doom in a sense, but way better than Doom, obviously. But yeah, they have this massive fight off, and then things become the unrealistic things become realistic, because they can now throw each other across the room. They can sort of lift up some heavy objects and bash their head off with it. But because they have this superhuman strength and healing power, it just seems okay. So they've thrown in like a Hellboy style action at the end as well, which was just brilliant. The special effects are good in it. There's a couple of bits that I thought I was a little bit let down about the special effects. There's a bit where the head Nazi has his face shot off, and this is why he takes the serum, because he's like bleeding out and his jaw's all mangled up, and he takes this injection, even advised by the doctor or the scientist not to, is not tested yet, and he takes it anyway to heal himself, and he suddenly, because you don't feel pain with it and things, and he suddenly starts to heal up, and he laughs, and when it shows you his face, which they've been hiding from the camera for a little while, it's quite obvious that they've green screened a little bit, so there's probably patches of it that are green screened, and then they've overlaid another image, and it was kind of obvious because the dark areas of the screen were different types of dark to the dark on his face. So you had like this grey sort of patch appear as well. It could have been me. I watched it on a television, so it could have been my TV that I was watching it on that was a bit, showing up the colours not right. But really, you shouldn't see that. That makes it obvious how they show it. It makes it also a bit blurry and hard to see, when really we wanted a close-up of that mangled face. But really, there is so much action in this film that it sort of combines the action and the horror and the fantasy and the adventure, that you're kept entertained. There's not a dry moment in this film. Even the beginning, where they're getting some sort of pointless dialogue, trying to set up the characters and stuff like that, which is totally necessary. They're on a plane driving or flying into the war zone, and there's other planes getting blown up around them, so already you've got the suspense of like, these people don't know if they're going to live or die. It's like, it was the day before D-Day, incidentally, when it was massively kicking off, and so they all get parachuted in. Their plane gets blown in half, and they're still floating on it, and they're trying to push each other out the door so that they can parachute out. So the suspense is straight away there, and the scenes with the plane and the several planes getting blown up, that's pretty good as well. The special effects are okay on that, and it really sets the scene of what you're about to get in this film. And it doesn't stop from there. It follows these soldiers, and they take throw after throw of bad events, being caught and being experimented on, and being shot at, and then their friend getting reanimated and attacking them as well, and then it's just relentless, and it goes on, and it's such a great, entertaining film. I seriously think you should watch it. The film's sitting at 7 on IMDb, and I think that is fair. I don't think it's going to stay there, because horrors generally don't hit that high. It has to be something really unknown, like Shyamalan style films in the horror industry typically hit that high. And it was at 7.1 when I first started looking at the film, so it has dropped a little bit, but I would love it to stay at 7, because I think it's one of the best horrors we've had in a long time. So guys and girls, I'm going to try to keep this one as short as possible, because there's not a lot to say other than the fact that it's a really good film and you'll enjoy it, even if you're not a massive horror fan. fan, you're a bit of an action fan, or you don't like gore too much, you can look away at those moments, but there's enough of everything else in this film that will entertain you. So thanks for listening. If you're enjoying my reviews, please hit the subscribe button, let me know, and I'll keep doing them for you.